Welcome back. As you know, I'm Eli, the computer guy, here for the Daily Blob, where I have to admit we're getting to the point where I might actually need artificial intelligence. My brain might not be able to handle the modern technology world, and I will need AI, right? Because before, in about 2012, right, with the rise of startup companies worth over $1 billion, the concept of a unicorn was created, right? There was, I think it was a TechCrunch writer. There was something like 10 of the unicorns at the time. And so basically they needed a terminology for startup companies that were worth a lot of money. And so they came up with the concept of a unicorn. And then time went by and these companies got bigger. And so there were still private companies. They had not IPO'd yet, but they started to be more companies worth over $10 billion. And so they were called decacorns. Now, recently, with these AI companies, right, we've been getting more and more of these that are now worth over $100 billion, right? We have Anthropic worth $183 billion. We have OpenAI. They're trying to get a $500 billion valuation. We have xAI right up there. And that's where I came up with the term for if they're worth over $100 billion, calling them a stupicorn. Because obviously it's so fucking stupid that we have private companies that are valued this much, right? Do remember with investors, the idea is when you invest $1, you don't want to get $1 back. You don't want to get 50 cents back. You don't even really want to get $1.50 back. You want to get $2 at least, or you want to get $10 or $11, right? You want that 10x return. If I put $1 in, the hope, right? The hope is that I'm going to get 10 out. So if you have a $100 billion company, the hope for the investors is that it'll go to a $1 trillion company. But the thing is, in order for them to sell their equity, you have to have investors at that $1 trillion price point think that's going to get to be a $10 trillion company. And then for them to sell, you have to have investors that think it's going to get to a $100 trillion company, right? That's how the whole investment thing works. So the issue is right, once you start getting these $100 billion companies, the amount of money that is required to bring back value for these investors just becomes absolutely enormous. And that's why I talk about $100 billion companies being called stupicorns, right? These startups are just stupicorns because it's just stupid. It's when two unicorns inbreed doing meth at the same time, you come up with a stupicorn. But the problem that we're running into is shortly, because it is 2025, we are going to get to the $1 trillion startup. I guarantee you we are going to get to the $1 trillion startup. And I am not smart enough to come up with an insult for the $1 trillion startup. The $1 trillion startup is going to be so fundamentally asininely stupid on the face of it. I don't have enough neurons in my brain to come up with an appropriate name for it. So that in fact will be the day that I will require AI. Anyways, this whole AI thing is just so stupid. It's just dumb. It's just look, I was there for the dot-com boom. I was there for the housing bubble. Oh my God, there are bubbles. There are bubbles. And there are booms. And then there's whatever the hell this dipshittery is. So anyways, as I've talked about, OpenAI is trying to get to that $500 billion valuation. They're literally doing a $40 billion round. I just want you to think about that for a second. OpenAI, one single round is $40 billion of investment. Right? We have Anthropic. I think they just hit $183 billion valuation. I forget what they got, 10 or $15 billion for their round. And now with Elon Musk and xAI, they appear to be doing another round. Elon Musk's xAI raising $10 billion at a $200 billion valuation. Think about this. These are still private companies. They have not IPO'd or any of that. $200 billion. Do you remember back in the day when Uber was IPOing, and they said the high end of the IPO would be $120 billion, and it was like that dumb. Again, they cratered. Well, they cratered. They went down to like $50 billion at one point. Anyways, but the thought that Uber would be worth $120 billion was just like so stupid. And now xAI is simply one of the AI companies that are now worth over, or they're valued at over $100 billion. These numbers are just ridiculous. And the problem is you just can't make these numbers work out. Again, it just none of these numbers work out. It just doesn't. This amount of investment, and again, I talk with so many people that deal with artificial intelligence, just day after day. And it's not that AI isn't value. It's not that AI doesn't have a value proposition. It's just not this much. It's just not this, right? How valuable is a car? How valuable is a car? Right? Well, a car gets you to work. If you don't have a work, you can't buy a house. You can't get to the hospital. The whole 9 yards. But you couldn't value a car at $1 million. Think about a bottle of water. Right? Water is absolutely vital for you to survive. But if somebody tried to sell you a bottle of water for $100 or $1,000 or $1 million, you think that's ridiculous, right? The reality is a bottle of water should cost about $1, right? That's just, right? There is an amount of money that things are economically worth. Again, it's an interesting thing, right? With this, right? I make money screaming into a camera, talking, giving Elon Musk shit. Right? What is the societal value to what I'm doing here? Fucking nothing. Oh, this is garbage. This is trash. But it pays me. This pays me. Right? Silicon Dojo, silicondojo.com. I do in-person technology education that I basically do for free. It costs me money to do in-person training to make people's lives better. I make money talking shit about Elon Musk. Right? And that's just kind of like, again, that's a weird thing about how money works, and the economy works, and economics works. It's like, they're just like, what is the value of everything? You would think me actually teaching people to build things and do things, that would have like this massive economic value. And for the people that learn over the long term, they do get a massive value out of it. But I get like 50 cents or something. Right? It's like this weird, and that's why I say, like, with AI, it's not that AI doesn't have value, right? Olama is great. We're gonna have a class on Olama coming up in Durham. Olama is great. But that's the thing, there's so many models out there now, right? Olama is an open source framework for running LLMs. There's just a ton of open source or open weights or whatever LLMs that are out there that are free for you to use, even for commercial purposes. And so there becomes this question of not are LLMs valuable for society? Yes, no question. Are they worth $1 trillion? No, also no question, right? If I told you, right, NoSQL, I've talked about this before, NoSQL. NoSQL is a database system, schemaless database system, just insanely scalable in the whole 9 yards. NoSQL has literally changed the world. NoSQL has literally changed the world. If I told you MongoDB should be worth $500 billion, you'd call me a fucking idiot. You'd call me rightfully so. You call me a fucking idiot, right? Even though NoSQL has changed the world. Our world is fundamentally different than it was 15 years ago because of this database type. But if I told you to invest a tremendous amount of money into MongoDB, who creates a NoSQL database engine, you call me a moron, right? And so that's where I think it's weird with this whole AI thing. Because we slap AI on it, because we call it artificial intelligence, right? The perceived value of that computer function somehow means it's worth gazillions of dollars. Anyways, Elon Musk's xAI is raising $10 billion from investors in a round that values the AI startup at $200 $500 billion. Sources with direct knowledge of the situation told CNBC. It's the latest example of skyrocketing valuations for companies developing foundational AI models. Earlier this month, Anthropic raised $13 billion at a $183 billion valuation. OpenAI, the largest company in the industry, held a secondary share sale that valued it at $500 billion. The fundraising comes weeks after Musk raised $10 billion in debt and equity in what was believed to be a $150 billion valuation. According to Faber, last December, xAI raised $6 billion to fund its AI development. So that's the other thing, too, with these companies. Like with Anthropic, I think they had just been valued at like $100 billion or something. So they had done a round in March, I do believe, of this year, where they had been like at $100 billion or something like that. A few months later, they're doing the next round to get them to $183 billion. We see this now with xAI. xAI just closed a round not that long ago. This looks to be like an entirely new round with an even higher valuation. Musk said in May that he wants to buy 1 million AI chips. Faber said much of the proceeds of this round of funding could go to building data centers filled with NVIDIA and AMD GPUs that are needed to develop next-gen AI, as well as to hire expensive talent. The company is currently building a large cluster of AI computers in Memphis, Tennessee. So there's not a lot to hear about this. Basically, they're bringing in more money so that they can spin up more hardware and produce whatever the hell it is xAI produces. What do they make again? What problems does xAI solve? Apparently, they will give you not safe for work jokes. $200 billion. And you get all the NSFW jokes you want. I guess that's a value. I don't know. So it'll be curious to see where this goes. And it'll be curious to see with all of these AI companies, with all of these absolutely massive valuations, and how this works out at the end of the day. As I've said, it's interesting. So we'll be teaching in Durham for Silicon Dojo. We'll be teaching this class using Ollama. And so with Ollama, we'll probably be using the Pi model. It'd either be using a Pi model or a Granite model from IBM. Anyways, Microsoft does the Pi, IBM does the Granite model. Anyways, they have small versions of these models. So Pi 3.5, I think they're on PHI 3.5. It's like a 2 billion parameter model. And the curious thing is, what I like about it is it'll run on basically no hardware. Right? It can run on it's an LLM that can basically run on a potato. It runs on a 2012 MacBook Pro. Like, it's that small. And the curious thing is, though, is that if you write your code well and you know what you're trying to get out of the model, or you're trying to get, when the model does what it does, that the Pi, that very small model, can actually do a lot of powerful things. Right? And that's one of my questions. Like, with all of these new foundation models coming out, whether it's OpenAI, whether it's Anthropic or Mistral, whether it's the Chinese companies, right? They keep getting these better and better and better and better and better and more expensive models. And one of my questions with this is that what we really need for artificial intelligence? Do we really need the models to continuously get better and better? Or can we start designing systems better that you simply use LLM? So RAG, retrieval augmented generation. So we had Do with contextual AI. He was on a fireside chat a month or two ago. Anyways, so his company is trying to do RAG 2.0, retrieval augmented generation 2.0. And they've got $100 million. So they've got $100 million in investment. And the idea with RAG is they use something called vector databases. But basically, when you ask a question, RAG will go into a database and try to find information in that database that has something to do with the question that you asked. And then basically your question, along with those database results, then go to the LLM, and it'll say, answer this query. And here's the query with this information, right? And that'll be everything that comes out of that database, that vector database. And so the idea then is that the LLM is really simply, it's kind of parsing and understanding human language. It's parsing and understanding what came in from the RAG system in order to provide a result. And so the curious thing there is do you need a better LLM to answer your questions, solve your problems, or do you need need better subsystems, better RAG, better things like that. And that's one of the questions I have. And with those kinds of things, that they're just their value is just so much less than the LLM value. Again, think about this, RAG. So RAG 2.0, right? This is an incredibly powerful solution, contextual AI, and they've got $100 million in investment. And $100 million in investment is nothing to fuck to sneeze at, right? But look at it. Mistral is like one of the small players in the AI space, and they've gotten $10 billion in investment, right? LLMs, for some reason, when you think about AI, the value for LLM is valued here. The value for RAG is valued here. So one of my questions is the true value for the LLM more here? So you have the LLM, you have RAG, you have all of these other subsystems that come together in order for AI to be able to provide you answers. And I think that's what we're going to find. I think that's what we're going to find. But I don't know. We'll find out. I am definitely not smart enough to get my cut of $200 billion. So maybe I am just not seeing whatever it is that they're trying to do. So what do you think about this? What do you think about Elon Musk trying to get another $10 billion for xAI to bring them to a $200 billion valuation? What do you think about the valuation for all of these AI companies at this point, and how just astronomical these valuations are? Do you think there is an ounce of common sense at this point? Do you think any of this, like these valuations, actually make a damn bit of sense? Or are you like me, where you think a lot of the lower cost, lower resource intensive subsystems will actually provide the most value for things like artificial intelligence going into the future? I don't know. Put your thoughts down below. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a thumbs down. Call me amazing. Call me a moron. Just be a real alpha dog and do it down in the comment sections. Do remember SiliconDojo.com still exists. We are doing our first class in a long time, in-person class in Durham, North Carolina in the next couple of weeks. It's going to be in a place called American Underground in Durham. Make sure to sign up for SiliconDojo.com so you get the newsletters or whatever when those goes out. And when the class is scheduled, I just have to do a couple things. You'll be notified, and they're free to the end user. Again, authorityless, gatekeeperless, free to the end user, hands-on technology education that empowers you to do whatever the hell it is that you want to do. So basically you can come and you can simply learn, and we'll be talking about AI and LLMs with databases and all kinds of cool stuff. So anyways, join SiliconDojo.com for that, and see y'all later.